think about the last time you had this incredible, just seemingly impossible stroke of luck.
Right, like something totally out of the blue.
Exactly. Like maybe you landed a massive promotion out of nowhere, or, a long shot investment suddenly paid off, and suddenly you just found yourself completely insulated from financial stress.
Living the dream, basically.
Right. Now, I want you to flip that scenario entirely. Think about a period of intense, just grinding struggle.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
A time when absolutely nothing was going your way, You were physically and mentally exhausted, and it felt like you were just swimming against a riptide.
Just endless friction.
Exactly. In those moments, did it feel like the universe was either handing you a massive earned reward or like delivering a targeted, crushing punishment?
I mean, human nature practically demands that we look at our material circumstances and assume there's some, invisible cosmic scoreboard out there validating our worth.
It really does. And that instinct is exactly what we are tearing down today.
Welcome to this deep dive into an essay by the author Sufeng. It's titled, Is Being Born into Wealth a Reward and Being Born into Poverty a Punishment?
Which is a heady title, honestly.
It is. But our mission today is to explore a framework that takes our standard, everyday definitions of good luck and bad luck and completely dismantles them.
Takes them completely apart.
Yeah. And just as a quick heads up to you, the listener, as we get into this, Sufeng pulls heavily from Buddhist, Christian, Taoist, and Confucian traditions to construct this argument.
Right. Very diverse sources.
Yeah, so we aren't here to preach or, to validate any of these specific religions as absolute truth. We're impartial guides here. Instead, we're just going to use these ancient philosophies to pressure test this author's fascinating and frankly radical worldview.
Which I think requires us to first establish the baseline worldview that the author is trying to deconstruct in the first place. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the essay begins by isolating a very specific yet incredibly common interpretation of karma.
Right, the idea held by many individuals that being born into wealth, power, and prestige is just a direct, linear reward.
Like a cosmic payout.
Exactly. It's viewed as the accumulated payout of good karma or spiritual merit from a past life.
And the natural flip side of that baseline belief is that being born into poverty or, struggling without resources is a cosmic penalty.
Yeah, under that framework, struggling basically means you failed to accumulate spiritual merit, and now you are paying the tab.
It is a highly linear, transactional way of looking at existence.
Yeah.
You do good deeds, you get rich. You do bad deeds, you stay poor.
But Sufeng shatters that transactional logic almost immediately.
Yeah.
And they do it by introducing a totally different philosophical mechanism.
Right. And they don't start with Buddhism. They actually go to
Christianity. Yeah.
Yeah.
The essay points to the famous warning from Jesus Christ in the Christian scriptures.
What about the camel?
That's the one. That it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Such a vivid image, too.
It is. And the author doesn't just use this as a moral guideline, but almost as a statement of spiritual physics.
Spiritual physics.
I like that.
Yeah. Because if the ultimate goal of existence is to attain spiritual liberation or reach heaven, and wealth makes that goal mathematically impossible.
Like forcing a massive animal through a microscopic bottleneck.
Exactly. Then wealth is actively functioning as a barrier. It's pulling you away from heaven.
I mean, I get the metaphor, but I struggle with the underlying logic there, though.
How so?
Well, the author makes this massive leap to conclude that because wealth acts as a bottleneck to heaven, being born rich isn't a reward at all. It's actually a punishment.
Right.
It's like winning the lottery, but the prize money is cursed. How exactly does the author justify that receiving something everyone wants, like money and power, is actually a cosmic penalty?
It's a fair question. Because humans are biologically wired to hoard resources for security, Penalizing us for succeeding at biology feels deeply counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive until we separate our biological imperatives from our spiritual trajectory.
Okay.
Sufeng uses a really brilliant psychological anecdote to illustrate the mechanics of this trap.
That one with the kid, right?
Yeah, the misbehaving kid. So imagine a child who has a terrible habit of cursing and insulting people.
Just a real menace.
Total menace.
Yeah.
One day, this child hurls insults at an old man walking by. But instead of scolding the child or, correcting the behavior, the old man just smiles.
Which is already weird.
Right, he smiles, walks up, and hands the kid a giant handful of candy actively praising the child for their incredibly creative insults.
Oh, wow. So you aren't being kind to that child by giving them candy. You are setting them up to be universally hated later. By positively reinforcing that toxic behavior, the old man is ensuring the child will grow up utterly insufferable, alienate everyone around them, and eventually face severe, real-world consequences. Giving them the candy is just an act of sabotage.
That is the exact mechanism. The child received an immediate material reward, but that reward was the catalyst for their long-term destruction.
That's so dark, but it makes so much sense.
Right. What's fascinating here is how the author connects this psychological phenomenon directly to Taoist philosophy, specifically the writings of Laozi.
Oh, right.
Laozi wrote, and I'm quoting here, "To weaken something, you must first strengthen it. To overthrow something, you must first support it."
Wow. That reframes things completely.
It really does.
Because if we map that Taoist concept back onto the idea of being born into wealth, giving someone unearned privilege and endless resources is just the universe's equivalent of giving a badly behaved child candy.
Yes, it's a trap.
It isolates them from the feedback loop of reality.
Completely. It removes the friction required for self-reflection. When you are insulated by wealth, you don't face the immediate consequences of your actions.
You're just allowed to inflate your ego unchecked.
Exactly. And the essay quotes another old saying to drive this home. When heaven wishes to destroy something, it first makes it mad.
Makes it mad, as in crazy with ego.
Right. Material abundance lulls the individual into a false sense of security, halting their spiritual growth and ensuring they become totally consumed by temporary earthly attachments.
That is a terrifying way to look at a trust fund or, a sudden windfall.
Yeah.
It recontextualizes privilege as an act of spiritual hazard.
It really is a hazard in this framework.
But wait, if having it easy and being handed the candy is a cosmic trap designed to inflate your ego until it collapses, wouldn't absolute destitution just crush us entirely? I mean, what is the purpose of poverty and suffering here?
Yeah.
How does this framework prevent us from just giving up under the weight of endless friction? Because if wealth is the punishment, poverty can't just inherently be the reward, right?
That brings us to the necessary counterweight in the essay.
Okay.
The author turns to Confucian philosophy for this part, specifically the teachings of Mengzi, to explain the mechanics of how suffering functions not as a punishment, but as a prerequisite for elevation.
A prerequisite. Okay.
Yeah. Mengzi argued that when heaven is preparing to place a great responsibility on someone, it deliberately subjects them to intense hardship.
In what way, though? Like, are we talking about general bad luck or something more systemic?
Oh, something much more systemic and physical. Mengzi wrote that heaven will actively torture them. It will test their resolution, exhaust their muscles, starve their body, deprive them of resources, and just utterly confound their actions.
Starve their body. That is intense.
Very. It is a deliberate, targeted disruption of their life to awaken their determination.
It sounds a lot like spiritual hypertrophy.
Oh, like in weightlifting.
Yeah. In physical fitness, you literally have to tear your muscle fibers under heavy resistance so they can rebuild denser and stronger.
That's a great analogy.
It sounds like Mengzi is suggesting the universe deliberately tears your life apart, placing you under immense psychological and physical resistance so your character can grow back stronger.
That is a highly accurate modern equivalent, yeah.
Yeah.
We might also look at it through the lens of anti-fragility.
Right, the concept that certain systems actually require stress and shock to improve rather than just survive.
Exactly. Mengzi is basically stating that a crucible of suffering is the only environment that awakens determination and builds true endurance. Therefore, if the universe actually favors you, it will deliberately withhold comfort.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the author doesn't just leave Laozi's theories on wealth and Mengzi's theories on suffering as these, isolated philosophical quotes.
No, they bring it all together.
Shuefeng attempts to unify them into a single, cohesive theory of spiritual thermodynamics. The essay introduces what the author calls the universal law of zero-sum energy.
And this is really the core engine of the entire essay.
It is.
The author postulates that the sum of positive and negative energy in the universe always equals zero.
I found this concept fascinating, but I do want to push on the math a bit. Can we break down the mechanics of the zero-sum law?
Sure.
Because it sounds a lot like cosmic accounting, but I want to understand why the ledger is balanced this way.
Well, viewing it as a cosmic ledger is definitely the best approach. According to the author, the ultimate goal of human existence is to accumulate enough positive spiritual currency, what the text refers to as merits and blessings,
Okay.
to ascend to heaven rather than endlessly reincarnating in the material world. Heaven has a strict entry fee.
So you basically have a spiritual bank account of accumulated merit.
Yes. Now, assume you enter this life with a massive surplus of merit in your account. You are perfectly positioned to pay that entry fee and achieve ultimate liberation.
Sounds great so far.
It does. However, because you have all this positive energy, the material world offers you the chance to cash it in.
Oh, I see.
You can trade that spiritual currency for earthly wealth, a massive house, social status, and a life totally devoid of physical struggle.
So you essentially liquidate your spiritual portfolio to buy temporary earthly comfort.
Precisely. And because the universe operates on a strict zero-sum law, you cannot maintain both balances simultaneously.
Right.
Every ounce of earthly blessing you consume drains an equal amount of heavenly merit from your account.
Wow.
By the time you reach the end of your life, having enjoyed total material supremacy, your spiritual balance is completely bankrupt. You have spent the entry fee to heaven on temporary illusions.
But mathematically, why are suffering and heavenly merit inversely correlated like that?
What do you mean?
Like, is the author suggesting the universe is just masochistic, or is it because suffering actively strips away the ego, which is the actual requirement for spiritual lightness?
It is definitely the latter. The ego is heavy. Material attachments are heavy. Enduring suffering without being consumed by bitterness burns away that heavy ego, preserving your spiritual merit. If we connect this to the bigger picture, earthly suffering preserves heavenly merit, while earthly indulgence squanders it. It builds the ego and makes you spiritually dense.
Which connects perfectly back to Jesus's needle.
Exactly.
The camel can't fit through the eye of the needle because it has gorged itself on earthly blessings and become too large. That completely tracks.
All connected.
Being born rich means the universe is allowing you to bankrupt your soul. But this zero-sum framework creates a massive historical contradiction for me.
How so?
If wealth drains merit and suffering builds it, how did the wealth as a reward doctrine ever gain so much traction in Buddhist circles in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
It feels like the prosperity gospel, you know? Did the author actually find any evidence of this get-rich theology in the original texts?
The author actually investigates that exact contradiction by analyzing the foundational source of Buddhist philosophy, the Diamond Sutra. Swiffing wanted to see if there was any textual basis for equating material success with spiritual virtue.
And what did they find? Because I imagine the text doesn't read like a venture capital manifesto.
No, not at all. When you examine the Diamond Sutra directly, there is absolutely zero mention of wealth, power, or social standing being the payout for past good deeds.
No.
None. The core philosophical pillar of the text is actually the concept of no form of self.
No form of self.
Yeah. It explicitly warns practitioners against dwelling on appearances, physical forms, or material manifestations to generate desire. In fact, it states that trying to perceive true enlightenment through worldly success is a deviant path.
Because it anchors you to the physical world.
Precisely. The author highlights a very famous poetic line from the sutra. All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles.
Bubbles, just totally fragile and empty.
Right. There is no link between money and spiritual merit.
So, if the core text explicitly states that a mansion or a title is just a bubble, then the people preaching that wealth equals good karma aren't just innocently misreading the philosophy.
No, they're not.
They are actively manipulating it to protect their own privilege. Tying your spiritual worth to your bank account fundamentally violates that concept of no form of self.
And that realization is exactly where Shuifang transitions the essay from theoretical philosophy into a piercing social critique.
So what does this all mean, like, socially?
The author argues that this twisted theology equating wealth with virtue is not just mathematically flawed in a zero-sum universe. It is highly unethical and morally bankrupt.
Because it functions as a sort of caste system of empathy.
Yes.
If you tell powerful, wealthy people that they are rich solely because they were righteous in a past life, you are basically handing them divine justification for hoarding resources. You flatter their ego and absolve them of any responsibility to share.
You grant them spiritual immunity for their greed. And honestly, the psychological damage it inflicts on the vulnerable is even worse.
It totally stabs the poor in the back. It weaponizes karma against them.
It does. People living in poverty are already enduring the physical realities of their environment, right? Hunger, stress, exhaustion.
Yeah.
But this manipulated theology adds a layer of immense psychological cruelty. It tells this suffering individual that their pain is entirely their own fault, the result of their own spiritual inadequacy in a past life.
That's awful.
Shuifeng points out that this perspective is completely devoid of pity, empathy, or compassion.
Ah.
It wounds the spirits of the poor, which entirely betrays the foundational purpose of Buddhism.
It allows society to look at a struggling person and say, well, I don't need to help you because the universe is just punishing you appropriately. That is incredibly dark.
It really is.
But, I have to push back on behalf of everyday human nature here.
Sure, go ahead.
If we accept the author's premise that the pursuit of wealth is a trap, that friction is required for growth, and that material goods are just bubbles, then what is actually happening when people practice their religion? Like, what are people actually worshiping when they go to a temple and pray for a promotion? Or when they donate money specifically hoping it will yield a financial return? If the pursuit of wealth isn't the goal of doing good deeds, what is going on with modern spirituality?
Well, Lu Feng brings the essay to a close by confronting that exact paradox. The author poses a very blunt question. What is the actual purpose of practicing religion or performing good deeds today?
Right.
Is it merely a strategy to ensure you are born into a wealthy family in your next life? Are people just treating their spirituality like an investment portfolio, hoping to maximize their earthly returns?
Because if so, they are entirely missing the zero-sum reality. They're literally trying to hoard the cursed candy.
Exactly. This raises an important question, which is actually Shuofeng's striking final thought in the essay.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author asks, is doing good just to get rich in the next life really the teaching of the Buddha?
No.
Or is it the temptation of the devil?
Whoa. Framing it as the temptation of the devil entirely changes the stakes.
It does.
It's not just a harmless, naive misunderstanding of karma anymore. It is an active spiritual sabotage. It suggests that our deepest, most biologically driven desires for comfort and security might actually be the very mechanisms pulling us away from ultimate liberation.
It forces a complete reevaluation of human motives. Are we doing good out of genuine compassion? Or are we simply trying to negotiate a better salary with the universe?
Man, this has been such a profound journey tracing the evolution of this idea. I mean, we started by looking at the baseline assumption that wealth is a cosmic gold star and immediately watched that get dismantled by the physics of Jesus's camel and the needle.
Right, the ultimate spiritual bottleneck.
And then we saw how unearned rewards isolate and destroy the ego, much like Laozi's trap of giving candy to a bully.
Which naturally led us to the necessity of Mengzi's crucible. The understanding that true cosmic favor arrives as friction and exhaustion, because systems of character require shock to grow.
All of which operates within that zero-sum universal ledger, where liquidating your spiritual merit for earthly bubbles leaves your soul totally bankrupt. And ultimately, we saw how the manipulation of that reality weaponizes karma against the vulnerable, turning spiritual practice into just an exercise in greed.
It is a framework that asks you to be deeply suspicious of ease and uniquely welcoming of friction.
Yeah.
So, to you listening, the next time you face a massive, seemingly unfair hurdle, maybe a project collapses, you face a sudden financial strain, or a relationship ends, instead of asking why the universe is punishing you, this philosophy challenges you to ask if Mengzi's crucible is simply training you for greater responsibility.
And conversely, the next time you get a surprisingly easy win, or you find yourself incredibly insulated and comfortable, you might want to look closely at your circumstances and make sure you haven't been handed a trap.
A handful of cursed candy.
Exactly. Which brings us back to where we started today. Think again about that cosmic scoreboard we all carry around in our heads. Based on this zero-sum universe, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Leave them with something to think about.
Yeah, if you were to wake up tomorrow and miraculously achieve your biggest, most comfortable, most ambitious material goal, would you actually be celebrating a victory? Or would you be unwittingly triggering your own cosmic demotion?